In this video, we're going to talk about succession. Now, our question says, both primary and secondary succession begin with pioneer species that, and you're given four choices. So the first thing you need to know is you need to understand what succession means and then the difference between primary and secondary succession. Now, succession is just a natural progression. So this says many things in the natural world progress in a sequence. Humans are born as babies and then grow into children. Children become adults. Other parts of the natural world can also change in a sequence. Ecosystems, which contain all of the living and non-living things that interact in an area, can change in a pattern called succession. And you can see here how over time the types of species of plants growing in an area change. All right, and let's look a little bit at that change. Now, primary succession starts off where there is only bare rock. So this might happen, for example, somewhere where there's a volcanic eruption. There is no soil or organic material. And so the only thing that can grow there are things called pioneer species. If you remember, a pioneer is something that goes out first to check out new territory. Kind of the same thing with plants, right? So you'll see that lichens are one of the only plants that are able to grow on bare rock. And once they grow and they're able to start breaking down the rock and the organic material from those lichens start being deposited, soil starts being formed. And so from that, you will then start to see small annual plants and lichens growing. And over time, 20, 30, 40 years, grasses and perennials will start to grow. And then after these pioneer species, you will see what's called intermediate species, which are grasses, shrubs, and shade-intolerant trees such as pines. And then finally, we end up with what's called a climax community. And this is pretty much how that ecosystem will stay, the type of plants that will be there going forward unless something else happens. All right? So that's primary succession, where we're starting from nothing. Now, secondary succession looks similar to primary succession, but happens as a result of something like a forest fire. And so it's not starting off from bare rock, it's starting off from soil. And so this tends to happen a whole lot quicker with the pioneer species coming in, and you will see kind of more complex pioneer species coming in first. All right? It doesn't need to have years and years of lichens to break it down. So in conclusion, the big thing is primary succession begins with no life, just bare rock, no soil present, such as in a volcanic island. And then lichen and moss come first. In a secondary succession, often following things like a forest fire where there is soil, then the seeds and the roots are already present and you're able to see the succession happening quite a bit more quickly. All right? So again, that's secondary succession, primary succession. So let's go back to our question. Both primary and secondary succession begin with pioneer species that A, change the area and make it safer from predatory organisms. That's not what we just described, was it? And you probably won't find predatory organisms somewhere where there's no food, like if you had bare rock or somewhere where everything was burnt down from a forest fire. So that's definitely not a choice. Second one, B, says invade the area so that new organisms cannot be established. Now remember, you need to read these carefully. And so if something invades an area and new organisms can't come, That's definitely not a good thing, right? And succession is a good thing, and it does allow new organisms to be established, right? We go from those pioneer species all the way up to a climax community where we've got big, tall trees, shrubs, and all of those things. C says modifies the area and allows larger and more complex organisms to appear. Now that sounds like what we've looked at. Look again at primary succession. See those larger and more complex organisms coming in afterwards? Same thing with secondary succession. And then the last question says use up all existing resources and prevent establishment of non native organisms. Well, in primary succession, there's really no existing resources, and at that point, nothing is native. So we know that this is not an answer either. So the correct answer here is going to be C, which is where it says it modifies the area and allows larger and more complex organisms to appear. All right, that's it. Hope that helps.